Row inmate Thomas Creech's execution is moving forward.
We're at the People's House of Idaho, and the power of government to take a human life is the one thing that none of us here want to give the government.
So many faith organizations, civil rights organizations, and individual Idahoans are here standing in opposition to this execution.
Life is not ours to take or to end.
We stand here once again to protest the action of the state and its use of the barbaric system of the death penalty.
We're now in the Idaho State Capitol. We're going to go into the governor's office, ask to be heard, and share our petition and our demand that they halt this execution.
It's just amazing the number of people that have come out in support at various churches and elsewhere. And we hope to have a really good turnout tomorrow to our last chance to oppose the execution of Thomas Creech.
I'm a clergy in the United Methodist Church, and this morning I'm gathered with a group of clergy and laity to protest the execution of Thomas Creech.
This didn't solve anything. This didn't help anything. Just thinking today of all the victims and just praying for the whole process.
First, I'd like to express my deep gratitude for Abe and Suzanne for coming out and organizing us and helping us to get our heads around what this means in our society and in our community.
So death penalty action comes wherever we need to go to support local abolitionists who want to stand up and lift their voices to oppose executions. It's an honor for us to have groups like the ACLU and the United Methodist Church and others ask us to come and help them. And that's what we do. We help lift up the voices of people who want to say no to executions. And welcome, everybody. It's another edition of The Forecast. We've got a few guests here tonight. I want to invite everybody to turn on your cameras, and if you're there in the audience, we welcome you to introduce yourself in the chat. We're live streaming, so again, you can share this on your Facebook and whatnot, and let other people know what's happening. So this is the forecast, and what we do normally the first Sunday of a month, but of course in April the first execution is before the first Sunday of the month, and then we look at the Sunday before that, and that's Easter. So here we are on a Wednesday night doing the same thing. We're going to look at what are the upcoming executions that we're all concerned about and going to be taking action on and all that. So I'm a little surprised to see Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood is here already, because normally he's on the phone with Michael Smith at about this time. So Jeff, are you expecting a call from Michael at this time?
Yeah, sometimes he calls somewhere between 8:15, 8:20, somewhere in there. He's moving right now, so it's he's going to Death Watch tomorrow. So it's a difficult time, and yeah, but I will be hearing from him shortly.
Okay, well, why don't we see if we can't talk about Michael in Oklahoma real quick before he calls. You say he's moving like right this minute?
Yeah, tomorrow he'll be going on Death Watch 7 days before executions in Oklahoma. They are confined to basically a solitary situation, single cell, where they're watched 24 hours a day. Notes are taken on everything that they do. And it's incredibly dehumanizing. Certainly is just very sad. I've been quite depressed today, to be honest. Just Michael is someone that I love very much, and somebody that I have gotten the opportunity to sort of pour into for almost a year and a half now, and it's a tragedy. I mean, there's no getting around that, and certainly the victims' families and the situation, the entirety of the situation, is a tragedy. But you don't. I don't know that anybody ever gets sort of comfortable losing people that they love. And when people ask me about this work and they ask me about, the guys that I get close to, they say, "Well, how can you handle it, and how can you keep going?" And it's I don't think people understand that every time one of these comes about, it's another just tremendous tragedy um, with with all of my guys. But Michael is in pretty good spirits. He's a pretty good spirited guy in general. He continues to proclaim his innocence and continues to declare that he did not have anything to do with these two murders. And as far as legally, it keeps fluctuating as to whether or not his lawyers will continue to appeal. That's something that, like always in Oklahoma, is incredibly complicated. And I hope that there'll be those fighting for him, but right now we just don't know. And so, we've got a week left. I'll say this, this being the forecast right before Easter. I think a lot about during the Easter season how Christ on the way to the cross had to have thought, this thing is over, this thing is done. And when he's bleeding out upon that cross, he had to have thought, this thing is over with, this thing is done. But of course, as a follower of Jesus, as a believer, I believe that the story doesn't end there. I believe in resurrection, and I believe in a final victory. And so I am praying for a final victory in the life of Michael Smith, whether it is in this life or the next, and for all of us, as we continue to fight this battle and continue to push back against this horrific thing that is the death penalty.
Thanks, Jeff. So Libby in the chat is asking why the 7-day process, and it's kind of shocking that there is. I guess this is a challenge that we have to face, and it's probably in some ways better this way. That litigation. You say there may be still litigation floating around. The Board of Pardons and Paroles in Oklahoma has denied a recommendation for clemency, which means that in Oklahoma, the governor is unable to act. We're still going to deliver our petitions, of course, next Wednesday to Governor Stitt in Oklahoma, because ultimately the governor does have the power at least to do a temporary reprieve and to, not that this particular governor is inclined to do that at all, but we're going to ask. We're going to continue to press. And that's why we want to continue to actually have people make sure to be signing and sharing the petition. I'll just show that real quick. We've got almost 7,000 signatures. We've been gathering signatures on this petition for quite a while. You can see it spells out some of the issues, including one of the issues that should have been discussed and was brought up at the clemency hearing is just the question of the borderline the border. Well, let me just show you this. The borderline mental capacity of Michael Smith. I think it was on 147, was it, of the Oklahoma Death Penalty Commission report.
Yeah, 147 and 148.
Let's see here. This is where you can see within. This guy is mentioned within the. Here we are. Within the report of the Death Penalty Commission in Oklahoma, that his case is virtually identical to another case where relief under Atkins was provided. And why can't we get this here? So here it is, Michael Dwayne Smith, and considered by the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals after Section 701.1 went into effect, involved IQ test scores, and here it's noting that given Smith's range of IQ scores, he should receive the same kind of benefit and relief that Darren Pickens received, who had very, very similar IQ scores and was granted Atkins relief. But of course they don't care. We saw just last week with Willie Pye in Georgia, who had significantly lower IQ scores, and he did not get relief under Atkins. Jeff, is that Michael there, Colin? I know we can't put him on, so
Yeah, hold on.
well, maybe we can put him on. Let's see what happens.
Hey, brother, can you hear me? Hey, listen, I'm on this forecast, which is like every month we get together and talk about executions that are coming up in the month, and we've got probably between all of the platforms, probably 50-60 people participating. And anyways, I'm about to hop off so that I can talk to you, but they all want you to know they're praying for you, that they're standing with you, and they're going to be fighting for you in the week to come. So, all right. Well, thank you guys, and I'll check back in a second.
All right. So there you have it. We know, as many of us who actually do phone calls with prisoners know, in some states it's illegal for us to have third-party calls or put somebody on a Zoom with a live conversation. So that's why Jeff is not just putting Michael on the phone with us, but we got a moment there to hear Jeff talk to him and share that we're all expressing our concern. I do want to just bring up David. Can you unmute yourself and just introduce David Estrada here, who is with us from McAlester, Oklahoma, which is where the Oklahoma State Penitentiary is. And David has been a regular with us in the protest vigils outside the prison. So David, welcome. Just wanted to give you a moment to say hello and any thoughts you want to share about what's happening in your community there in McAlester, Oklahoma.
Yeah, thanks. Not much going on here in Oklahoma and McAlester, just hanging out. And I plan to be there on the 4th. And I'm from California, and I don't know what else to say.
Well, the main thing is that you've been showing up regularly at the protest vigils outside the prison as a McAlester resident. And
yeah,
what's the talk of the town in there? Do people know that executions are going on in McAlester? Are they paying attention at all?
Some of the people I've talked to are aware, and a lot of them don't really want anything to do with it because they're all pro executions. Everybody I've talked to, and so it's I've just been coming out there since I moved out here a couple of years ago, and I don't think I missed one. I've only missed one execution since I've been here for 2 years.
All right. Well, David, thank you for being out there. We'll see you. Hopefully something will get in the way, and we'll appreciate your supporting and being present on Wednesday morning when that execution's going on. So
thanks.
Thank you, sir. And with that, we'll shift over to Missouri, which is where the next execution is scheduled on April 9th. And I want to invite Michelle Smith, who is here from Missourians Against the Death Penalty, to join us and fill us in on what's the campaign looking like there in Missouri. How can people help? What do we know about this case?
Thank you. Abe, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So thank you first for inviting me this evening. Right now, we are very hopeful that Governor Parson will grant Brian Dorsey clemency. Brian is scheduled to be executed April 9th at 6 p.m. in Missouri. Today, his attorney legal team released their clemency application that they will present to the governor. And it talks about, why Brian is deserving of clemency, why he is deserving of this chance at empathy and mercy. And, again, we're just very hopeful. Brian is a person who has truly what we call rehabilitated themselves. We talk about that a lot, right? But he is a person that you can tell he has rehabilitated himself. He has a spotless record, institutional record. And also, Brian has been supported by many corrections officers, as well as a former judge, and as well as a retired warden at the prison, because he is so well liked. So we hope that his rehabilitation and the support of these particular people will make a difference to our governor.
I put in the link in the chat, as I should say, a link to, and Ali has just echoed it as well, a link to the toolkit that y'all put together. In our tweet, which goes out automatically if you choose to share the death penalty action petition, we actually note that Brian is so trusted in the prison that he's the prison barber. And I mean, the prison workers have him cut their hair with sharp instruments. And, that's, one thing that people would not expect. So again, and we've got a plan April 4th, the same day as the Oklahoma execution, is the day for the petition delivery in Missouri, where we're going to bundle the death penalty action and the Catholic Mobilizing Network and the Missourians against the death penalty petitions and deliver those to the governor's office. Is that right?
That is correct. It will be on April the 4th, which is that prior Thursday. And also, just let you know, I placed something in the chat, a link to that clemency petition his attorneys released today. And it really talks about Brian's childhood, the difficulties, he had as a child growing up, and all of the reasons why he deserves clemency. So we have been sharing that as of today. Several of the officers who are supporting him, like you said, because he is the staff barber, their statements have been released as well. And that is available also in the clemency report. When you are, as you probably know, being a barber, right, that is a position of trust. That people have. You develop a relationship. In the years that Brian has been incarcerated, he has developed that relationship with the officers whose hair he cuts, and they also see that he is, number one, remorseful for what he did. Also, he has rehabilitated and become a better person. So we truly hope that the support of all of these players will go towards our governor granting Brian clemency, because he didn't get really a fair trial. I'm sure you've heard before, but in his case, his attorneys were paid this flat fee, and I believe it was $12,000. So when an attorney is really not even compensated properly below minimum wage, there was just not a lot of actual work going into his case. So he did not receive a fair trial. He did not receive justice. And so, we are hoping that the governor takes all of those things into consideration.
Maybe he'll listen, right? This is a different level of support that that a prisoner from Missouri normally gets, different level than a prisoner from Missouri normally gets. And y'all have been seeing repeated executions. In fact, you just had a new date set. There's no rest for the weary there in Missouri. But this is an unusual situation, and here's another thing: as I was sharing, maybe you can talk a little bit about this from the clemency report or petition. Is this issue about the 5 jurors and the former? You mentioned the judge, but is there anything more you can add about the jurors now asking for clemency?
Well, 5 jurors have been in contact with his legal team, and now that they have all of the information, they are remorseful about sentencing Brian to death, and they have come out in support of his clemency. When a person is on trial and they don't get the full, view of exactly what happened, not just with the crime, which again was very tragic, but the overall circumstances of what happened with Brian, Again, with his legal team not being compensated and not doing a great job on his case, they saw at this point that their verdict was not correct because everything was not known. And had they known all of these additional facts, they would not have voted to give Brian the death penalty. So that is something that the legal team have been very, working hard at, connecting with those jurors, connecting with the officers at the prison. And former judge, a retired judge, Michael Wolff, he is the judge at the Supreme Court of Missouri, who also reviewed what's the information now, and he said had he known that his attorneys were not adequately compensated and they did not do a good job on his case, he also would not have upheld Brian's execution date. So we definitely hope that the jurors, the judge, and particularly the officers at the prison, their support of Brian's clemency. We truly hope that that gets across to our governor and that he has mercy on Brian.
All right. Well, is there anything beyond signing the petitions, or are we ready to make phone calls yet? Where are we in the campaign? Should we ramp that up sooner rather than later? What are you asking folks to do?
Well, especially if a person lives in Missouri, we definitely want you to contact your own elected official to ask them to support Brian's clemency. We have been at our state capitol over the last probably month talking to our elected officials. Several of them have signed letters of support for Brian. So if a person is from Missouri and reaching out to their own elected official to ask them if they have done so, and if they have not, ask them please to do so. So that will be very helpful. But other than that, like you said, signing the petition, sharing on social media with DPA, MADP, sharing the information, and honestly having the conversations. People truly need to have these conversations at home with their own loved ones about just how the system takes a person who is vulnerable and does not give them the adequate justice and representation they need. So we all truly need to be having these conversations at home with our families, around a dinner table, etc., because this can happen to any family, like it happened to Brian's family. Any family can be involved in such a tragic situation.
Thank you, Michelle. I went ahead and put a link to the MADPMO.org, Missourians Against the Death Penalty webpage there. I want to invite people to check that out and also make a donation to Missourians Against the Death Penalty if you can, because we all are, are needing and can use any additional support that we can get. So, Michelle, we're grateful for your coming on tonight. And is there anything more about this case? And then I want to ask you about what we were up to this past weekend, since we were both together in New Orleans. So, anything more about the upcoming execution before we change the subject a little bit?
I think that's it, Abe. Just thank you for bringing me on. Thank everyone for, looking at Brian's case. Also, Mr. Smith's case as well. The people on death row truly deserve mercy. And I really hope that people take the time to review the cases and support their bid for clemency. So that's it. And yes, it was very good to meet you in person in New Orleans. It was a very emotional, a conference as well. So go ahead and let you talk a little bit more about it.
Well, sure. I'll ask in a moment. We'll bring on Lamont Hunter and Charles Keith, who are there with us as well, to share a little bit. But first, we were talking. Well, there were so many things. So we were at the national conference of the Innocence Network, which is not the Innocence Project. All the Innocence Projects are part of the Innocence Network. It's a big umbrella organization, and it was incredible in terms of the amount of people that were there. They had this moment where they called out all the exonerees that were present, who came, exonerees and freed people. Let's put it that way, because many of us know, and I'm going to introduce Lamont in a moment here, that often people, as a face-saving move for prosecutors, they say, well, you can plead guilty to this lesser offense and we'll let you go. And so they include those people, and they had this moment where they invited everybody that'd been newly freed to be up on the stage, and they used to do everybody that was present that had been freed, but they ran out of space. They had everybody that had already been introduced in previous conferences had to stay off the stage because there wasn't enough room for everybody, and it was just stunning, and it went on for like an hour. Of 3 or 4 seconds per person on a slideshow as they called people up. I want to just share this thing that's there you go, right here behind me. I don't know if we can see it. I'll take it off the wall in a second, but I want to find a picture and share this. There was also some folks from Taiwan, the Taiwanese, and the Taiwan Innocence Project was there, and one of the people, here we are, is this guy here, and I'll look up his name here, is a Taiwanese death row survivor. I think he did like 11 years or something like that. And he was making these Chinese character calligraphy items. And I show you, they saw me with my Free Melissa Lucio t-shirt, and they asked about that, and they asked about death penalty action. And I asked him to create a message for all of us in the movement. And that's what this is. There are 2 words in Chinese. The first one is persistence. I think that's what it was. Yes, persistence and hope. And that is the message for all of us in our movement, from this man who survived 11 plus years on death row in Taiwan. And it was just so many people that came up to us, people that we had worked on their cases in the past. Barry Jones, for example, who was, you might remember, the Shin ruling in the U.S. Supreme Court denied his release, even though in the state of Arizona actually acknowledged that Barry Jones was innocent. There were innocence issues, but it didn't matter to them, and they actually lost the Shin ruling. But as it happens in the election in Arizona, the governor and the attorney general were switched out, and then they were able to have the conversation about getting Barry Jones out. And he was one of those people that they offered a deal to, and he took a plea, and he was there. We got to meet him, among others. So let me introduce and bring in Lamont Hunter, and also Charles, if he's still here. Is Charles Keith still on the call? And Lamont, I want to introduce Lamont Hunter, and ask you, Lamont, to simply share with us. Let me introduce Lamont, a new part of the Death Penalty Action team. He's come on to help us explore what can we do better, what can our movement do better to help people who are newly freed. Lamont is an Ohio death row survivor, and if you want to unmute, Lamont, and share a little bit about your perspective of that first conference. You were one of those people that was recognized as being newly freed.
Yeah, thanks, Abe. I appreciate that. Thanks for inviting me and letting me be a part of this Zoom. And it's an honor to be a part of Death Penalty Action. I appreciate you inviting me onto the team. So that the conference, it was overwhelming. It was huge. It was to be in the building with so many men and women who you can identify with, who share similar stories to you, because in going through this journey, you get out to society, you come, you however you come home, or you're blessed to come home, you come home to society, and a lot, people can't identify with you or your story or your journey, so being in that conference, man, it was an honor to be there. First of all, it was my first one. I'm thankful that I was there, and it was a great to talk to people who share similar journeys and stories as myself, and to network and share resources and ideas of how resources could be presented and available for people such as myself and so many others who don't have who didn't get a compensation or or nothing like that coming home, and to be able to talk to people who have and know places and organizations available with resources it was a great, man. It was great. I got a lot of I made connections, and I'm gonna talk more with you about that, Abe, later.
Sure.
But yeah, thanks, man.
Looking forward to that. Let me bring forth Charles Keith, who joined me. We drove down from Ohio, and Charles, this was also your first Innocence Network conference. A little bit different. I want to share a photograph real quick before I invite you to share your perspective. This is Charles meeting for the first time Jason Flom, who does an Innocence podcast and was instrumental in trying to lift up some of the issues. But you can see, Charles is practically crying because he just met this person. And Charles, you want to just share a little bit more about that and your experience there?
Yes, I'm Charles Keith. I'm talking to you from Canton, Ohio. So many things for the past week has overwhelmed me. One thing was Jason Flom, knowing how instrumental he was in advocating for my brother back in 2010. I didn't know who Jason Flom was. I wasn't familiar with him. And then the name was presented to me, and I dug in. I found out who he was. And, I've spoken to him maybe briefly, but I never got the opportunity to meet him. And it was just so unusual to turn the corner, and I had to take a double take, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I was like, okay, we know each other. And, something just brought us to us, and it just broke me down because I'm seeing people that helped me save my brother's life, and that is remarkable to see the people that actually helped you, do something that remarkable. It's never just that one person. My take on the conference is that it's amazing how everybody thought that I was an exoneree, and I'm not an exoneree. In fact, it was funny that the exonerees thought I was an exoneree, and I was like, wait a minute, there's got to be a common factor here. And the factor was the vast majority of the men that were black men that was at the conference was exonerees, and that was very unusual. So I can understand everybody, automatically assuming that I was an exoneree, but that's not the way it should be. It shouldn't be so obvious that a black man walks into this conference and automatically you're an exoneree. And it was very odd to have people come up to me, and I was wishing that it was my brother that they were talking to. Are you an exoneree? Because then he could have responded and said yes. See, I couldn't give that response. I wanted so bad to say yes, but I was Charles Keith and not Kevin Keith. So I had to reserve this opportunity for, and hopefully that he'll be at the next one next year in Seattle, and he can say, yes, I am that exoneree, Kevin Keith.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Lamont, what's happening, my brother? Good.
Oh, no, man. Hey, speaking of Jason Flom, I love that picture of you and him. I got a chance to meet him for the first time, too, as well, down there. And I was privileged to do an episode on this podcast, man.
Hey,
a great guy.
Yes, sir. You see, the thing of it is, and I've always said that it's funny how we need celebrities to make our criminal justice system move. That's very strange, but I mean, it seems like it's part of it now. Podcasts, celebrities, support systems. I mean, we've got the whole show now. It's just funny how slow the system still moves, and you have people still facing death. That's a horrible thing.
Yes,
to see that many guys on a stage, man, it brought tears to my eyes. There was more guys up there than on the Ohio State football team.
That's right.
I said, look at that, exonerees. That's how many times the prosecutors lied.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. Let me share with you, with everybody here. This is, and I put a link to this in the chat. This is the Impacted Communities Liaison page at Death Penalty Action. Lamont is joining this part of our program. And you can see it, you can find us on the webpage at Take Action and then Impacted Communities. And this is where, we are working to support people who are not only the families of people on death row, and Charles is also, unfortunately, a murder victim family member due to the unsolved murder of his brother, Durad, but also this is where we list the GoFundMes that we know of, and there's a way here for you to send if you know of other GoFundMes where people can actually help folks like Charles, like Lamont. You can click on Lamont's fundraiser right here and help him restart his life, and you can see about that. And also want to note within, let's back up here. Where we go? Pardon me, I'm just figuring out here we are. If we go up to take action and our innocence, our wrongful convictions page, this is another place that we have available for people who want to list cases like this. And this is where you can find, among others, the Kevin Keith petition. And we're inviting people to continue signing this petition. We'll put a link to that in the chat as well. There's just so much going on that and it's hard to keep track of all of it, but I wanted to just take the time to share about this and thank Michelle and Lamont and Charles for sharing about that experience there.
No problem. I'm more than willing and to share and support, man, the great work that this organization do, and it's an honor that you invited me to be a part of it, and I look forward for bigger and better things in the future.
Okay. So let's see. I'm trying to think if there's, so let's look at the question. There is a question here. Lori is asking, why do certain states still have the death penalty? So I will answer that question here. Let's see. Why do some states still have the death penalty? Well, let's start back with 1972. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down all the death penalty laws in the whole country, and states that wanted to have a death penalty had to write new laws, many of which did. Florida had a special session of its state legislature in November of 1972 to write new death penalty laws, and within a couple of years, many states had added new death penalty laws, and hundreds of people were on death row again. And those new laws were upheld in 1976 with the Gregg decision on July 2nd, 1976, allowing the resumption of executions. And up until the 1990s, 36 states had added death penalty laws, as well as the federal government and the military. And since then, we've been able to strike that back down. The courts have struck down the death penalty in those death penalty laws in Delaware and New York State and Washington State. And we've abolished the death penalty legislatively by passing bills to prohibit it in New Jersey, New Mexico, Illinois, Connecticut, Maryland, Nebraska, New Hampshire, Virginia, Colorado, and Washington State also has passed legislation. And by the way, in Delaware, they're also now working on legislation to take it out of the state code, even though the courts have struck down their statute. And I should note, I did mention Nebraska, because Nebraska, they passed the bill, the governor vetoed it, they overrode the veto, and then Governor Ricketts, who's now their U.S. senator, put his own money into a campaign to put a ballot initiative on the ballot in 2016. There were actually 3 state ballot initiatives, all turned out badly for our movement in California. Lost a referendum to prohibit the death penalty. Oklahoma, we lost a referendum that wrote the death penalty into the state constitution there. And then in Nebraska, they reinstated or reversed that legislation and reinstated the death penalty. And they've had 1 execution since. And all of this is to say, Lori and everybody else, that we have the death penalty because there are legislators that think that that's their answer to being tough on crime. And if that's the way to limit murderers and to make sure that some victim family members get a relief that they think is there for them. But ultimately, and I would say, if Shane Claiborne was here and Bill Pelkey, And others, they like to say very frequently, if it weren't for Christians, we wouldn't have the death penalty. And we'll be talking about that on a little bit on Friday, Good Friday. We're having a noon hour Eastern time worship service for those who wish to join us. And we sent out a link about that tonight for registering on that. That'll be led by our board chair, Reverend Sharon Risher, and Jeff will be there, and Cantry Zusman will be there, and a number of others that are still letting us know. And also, we'll have a special guest, Britton. What's Britton's last name?
Buchanan.
Britton Buchanan, thank you. Who is he was the runner-up in the 14th season of The Voice, and he's got a song that he wrote based on his own experience with the Ivan Cantu case, and he wanted to share that with us, and we thought it was a beautiful contribution. So he's going to be joining us on Friday as well. Judy Cumby from Judy from used to be Cumby. What's Judy's last name? I keep forgetting. She's also got a song.
Collins.
Yes.
Judy Collins.
Judy Collins. Yes, I knew her as Judy Cumby. I keep slipping on that. But that was 30 years ago when we met at the first Journey of Hope from Violence to Healing in Indiana. So it's got to be an interesting experience, and and you're all welcome to join us with that. But ultimately, Lori, I hope that answers your question. States have the death penalty because they think it's going to help people. They think, legislators think that it will make them appear tough on crime. They think that somehow it helps victim families. They think that somehow it keeps us safer. They think that somehow it's cheaper. All of the things that we can talk about. They think that somehow it's a better deterrent than throwing away the key or simply helping people not go down that path towards murder. Those are the reasons why some states still have the death penalty. And until we can find a way to make the U.S. Supreme Court rule that it is actually not just cruel, but unusual. And we know that it's unusual. They've already decided it's not cruel, but until the U.S. Supreme Court shifts a bit and decides that it is actually unconstitutional the way we're doing that, we're going to continue not the death penalty. And in fact, it's probably going to get worse in the coming years. We're looking at states bringing in other forms of execution. With gas in Alabama, Louisiana just passed a bill to allow gas and bring back their electric chair, and on top of their lethal injection mechanism. And we know that legislation comes into effect on July 1st. So it's quite likely that we'll see an execution date set for Louisiana, if not several, that may even take place within this calendar year. We'll see. South Carolina, we're waiting for the South Carolina Supreme Court to decide whether or not their firing squad and electric chair are constitutional, which they are. I think it would be a fair bet that they will decide that those things are okay. And when they do, South Carolina is chomping at the bit to set a number of dates. Kentucky is starting to make noise, Idaho, Utah, states that haven't executed in a while. So we're going to be seeing more before we end it, but we're going to end it. We're going to end it together. And that's why we're all here, to hear about what's coming up next and what we can do about it. So any other questions? Lynn is mentioning in the chat, thank you, Reverend Lynn Hopkins in Alabama, that the Alabama legislature has a bill pending to ban the asphyxiation executions. Probably no chance of it going anywhere this session, but we all saw what's happening, and we also know, by the way, they just set a new execution date, Jamie Mills, for May 30th. So we'll be talking about him on the next forecast. But May 30th in Alabama, and they're also trying to set several other dates, including for Alan Miller, who is the other person in Alabama for whom they started trying to execute him, poked him, cut him, all that, and then sent him back alive. And they're asking for another nitrogen suffocation execution for him. So, Christie is writing that Nebraska is a red state, but the abolition bill that passed in 2015 was championed by conservatives. That's right. More Republicans voted to abolish the death penalty in Nebraska than Democrats. And that's in part because Nebraska is unicameral. They just have a Senate, and they and they only had 8 Democrats in the whole body during that session. So yeah, that's the reality of it. So Gwen is saying that some of the states may be or tend to be Republican-led states, but I want to say in Ohio, we've got the Republicans have all the power in the House and the Senate and the governorship, and we're working on a bill to abolish the death penalty that should be starting to move pretty soon. We're just waiting. We're now past the primaries, so we're expecting hearings will start back up soon on the bills to abolish the death penalty in Ohio. But you're right. Actually, I will say that actually in our campaigns to end the death penalty, often it's the Democrats who are the hardest nuts to crack because they think they have to support executions to be tough on crime. So there's that. Before we go, I want to make sure everybody understands and knows that Ali Sullivan is in a quarterfinals of a contest being run by Inked magazine. Ali, can you put your link there? And I want to invite you to talk about that a little bit. I just made another 50 votes today. This is Ali Sullivan, our communications coordinator for Death Penalty Action, and tell us about this contest that you're in.
So as Abe mentioned, it's the contest to be on the next cover for the Inked magazine, which, if you know anything about tattoos, is the biggest tattoo magazine in the world. And I randomly threw my name in a couple months ago. I didn't think anything of it. I was just thinking, oh, I really like the tattoo artist that you win a 2-day session with if you win this contest. And I thought it would be really cool to use the platform to share about our issue and amplify our message to abolish the death penalty. And then also, many of you know I have a lot of health problems, and so it would be really nice to win the little chunk of money that comes with it to help pay for a lot of those. So as Abe said, I'm a quarterfinalist now. Like I said from the beginning, I didn't really think anything of it. But now that we're here, I feel really compelled to keep it going because we've made it so far. There's probably been close to 10 rounds already that we've gone through. And I'm teetering right now between first and second place in the quarterfinals. Tomorrow is the cutoff for the semifinals, and then it's just that and one more round after that. So we're almost there. It would mean a lot if you could vote for me. You can vote for free. You can also pay for votes, but that's another thing. And if you free vote, you can do once every 24 hours. So thank you.
And Ali, I want to thank you for putting yourself out there and using this as a way to highlight our issue that we work on, that you work on every single day in so many ways. Folks, if you see us on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, mostly on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, that's most often the work of Ali Sullivan, who's, quite often behind the scenes on these things, but here she is out front and putting herself out front. And I will say also that the, Inked magazine and this campaign, if you buy votes, they're actually going to a good cause too, to help musicians who are indigent and need support to survive in this world. So it's not a bad cause; it's different. But for me, I think if Ali ends up winning this thing, that's going to be a much bigger opportunity for her to share her perspective on the death penalty with a whole new audience. And that's why we're supporting this in the way that we are, emailing people about it to share their votes. And I'm putting my own money into this because I want Ali to win. So if you can't, just go to that link, cast your vote, even if it's just one of the free votes. If you do it in the next 10 minutes, your vote gets doubled, and do that every day. And we'll see if we get her into they're probably going to do semifinals, which will, if she ends up being one of the last two out of how many people, Ali, were in this contest?
It's tens of thousands of people. I don't know the full number because the further into the competition I go, the more aware I am that there were groups beyond just my individual group that we were voting in. So at first I thought it was 1,400. It's probably closer to 10 or 15,000. So yeah, it's a lot.
A big deal. It's a big deal. And it goes to the test. It's a testament to you, Ali, but also to the organizing power of our movement, since, who knows how many other people have an organization or organizations that are out there pushing this. So, so thank you, Ali. And, and with that, I think, is there anything else anybody from our panel wants to add? Jeff, let's come back to you here. And did we have any further thoughts from your conversation with Michael Smith?
No, I mean, just that it's an incredibly sad time. And, there's some tears every time I talk to him. I don't know if you want everybody knowing that. He's a tough guy. But, yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a sad time. And, Charles, you made a really good point in that, this is a young man that came out of the late 90s, early 2000s gang world. And, he was 19 years old when this stuff happened. I mean, this is a kid that, never made it out to projects, man. And growing up in Atlanta, man, I knew, like a lot of y'all, I knew so many people who, had, these spaces in which that they just were never able to leave, to grow out of. And I think that's a lot that's going on with Michael. I'll say this and then I'll stop. But I know during his clemency hearing, one of the things that was most meaningful to me that he said was he got to the end of his remarks, and he said everything he wanted to say, and then he finished with tears in his eyes, saying, "I was only 19." He said over and over again, "I was only 19. I was only 19." And it just illustrates to me what a lack of compassion our society has, especially for those that we marginalize and oppress from the very beginning. And so, I think that it's easy to, with Michael Smith or any of these other folks that are executed, we campaign and we work and we fight. But I think it's harder to say, hey, this is happening, not necessarily, I mean, certainly because of what they did or whatever the situation, but this is also about what we've done or what we haven't done as a society. So I think these situations are also fairly damning of us as well. And Michael continues to remind me of that.
Hey Jeff, it's like we say in the hood. You learn to kill, you learn to survive in an environment that could possibly kill you. And then when you survive and live, then they have a system that turns around and kills you.
Right.
Because you survive, because most of the guys don't make it to death row. Most of them don't make it to prison. They go to the morgue. A lot of guys, a lot of them, that's the direction, jail or hell. So sometimes jail is a salvation. It gives you that second chance. Death doesn't give you that second chance. And then we get to see this transformation. And I love that word transformation because I know where these guys are coming from, and when you see that transformation, that's showing you that glory. It's showing you that power. And then we turn right around and snuff it out.
Right.
As if it didn't happen. If that person didn't transform, we snuff it out.
Yeah, as if they don't matter. Just quickly, Charles, me and Charles could go back and forth all evening, but I've talked to 3 guys today on various death rows around the country. Each one of them, one was a PCP situation, one was a meth situation, one was a heroin situation. And it's like, you got all these other folks who have drug problems and they go to rehab. And then you got these other situations where they go to prison. And it's not to say that, we should just wipe away, what people do, but it is to say that, when you're wealthy, drugs are something that gets you to rehab. It's a problem. It's a health condition. But when you're poor, you're violent, you're nasty. We got to put you behind bars. And I just think that it speaks to why we have to change our mentality in this country, in this society. We have to begin to see each person as being of inherent worth and value. Because until we do that, we're going to keep sending people to death row, and we're going to keep on executing people because we think that some people matter less than others.
Any final thoughts, Michelle or Ali or Lamont?
I do have a final thought. I was just listening about, the issues with drugs, which is one thing that led Brian to do the horrible situation that led him on death row. And I agree with you, Jeff. I think that, empathy in this country depends on how much money you have in your pocket, right? Empathy depends on what family you came from, what school you went to, and those sorts of things. Is not based on just your humanity and the fact that you became addicted to something that you just don't have any help to deal with. So I agree. I think that we should really center people's humanity in these cases where people are really numbing themselves with drugs or dealing with their mental health conditions because they don't have money for doctors, et cetera, with drugs. So I truly think that as a country we need to focus on people's issues, substance abuse issues, to understand its mental health, and there are some other emotional underlying issues, and give those people the same benefit of the doubt that we would give someone who has lots of resources and a lot of family support, in these cases of drug addiction. So that is one area we truly need to humanize everybody.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, you reminded me, Keith, Charles, you reminded me. I think everybody on here, one of the things I get reminded of every time is that the death penalty is not just about people who are about to be executed. It's about all of us. It's a meta issue. It's not just a singular issue. It speaks to who we are as a society. And man, I tell you, every time we gather, my prayer is hopefully by the work that we're doing, we can make a little bit more gentle the life of those in our society.
Amen. Lamont, any further final thoughts? Charles? Alan?
That question about the topic about the drugs is very powerful. It just reminded me when Jeff and when you guys were just talking about the drug situation and what led people to commit their crimes and stuff. Drugs itself was criminalized racistly from the government of this country. The crack epidemic hit in the 80s, and it was mainly in the black communities. They targeted the black communities, weaponized crack, and criminalized it. Okay, fast forward now in these times of the opiate crisis, what they call crises, in the heroin crises. Now it's it's a health, like Jeff just said, it's a health problem. We need to get these people help. So because mainly it was suburban housewives, white people getting addicted to the opiates that the pharmaceutical companies was pushing. So it's all interconnected, man. And the repercussions of it and the ripple effects of it is you see that you see it manifested with the crimes being committed and not committed, and the people who landed on death row is a reflection of that.
Lamont, brother, we ain't never talked before, but your story is incredibly inspiring. You're a very inspiring brother, man. And so
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
It's great to hear you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And we got to connect, Jeff. Whenever you want to, man, we reach out. I'll reach out. We can connect and absolutely do that.
All right, we'll get you guys each other's numbers. Charles, last thoughts?
Well, like I said, I'm sitting here, praying for my brother to come home any day. I've got all that energy from those exonerees. That was one of the most beautiful things because, again, that's hope. It's hope alive. It's, those conversations. It's just when they said, are you an exoneree? I'm glad when they're asking that to Kevin Key.
Amen.
Hey, excuse me, hey, before you end this, I just wanted to ask Charles, when the last time you talked to Kevin, and how's he doing, man?
I usually talk to him about 10 times a day. He's doing very well. He done got interested in Facebook and all the other stuff. He done found out some media stuff. So, he done turned into pastor, lawyer, doctor. I mean, this guy's probably got like 15 degrees. You're not going to stop him.
Right.
Every door is shut. He said, Chuck, I ain't looking for doors no more. I'm looking for cracks.
Right.
He said, I'll be like water. I'll seep out of this bitch.
Well, next time you talk to him, tell him I send, my support, my love from one Conrad to the other.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to visit him tomorrow morning, so I'll see him at 8:30 in the morning in Marion Correctional, and then after that, I'm heading over to CWT Montgomery in at Lima. Another death row, another guy who should be freed. Who we stopped his execution. His sentence should have been commuted, and he should get a pardon. Who knows what will happen with him? But that one's done. So, folks, let me just make sure Friday, 12 p.m. Join us. And that's, I'm Jewish. I'm going to be there, and Cantor Zusman will be a part of that. And we'll have people from a variety of other faiths, Christian denominations. Our board chair, Reverend Sharon Risher, will be leading us in that program. And we'll hear from Jeff, and we'll hear from hopefully Shane Claiborne, and from Reverend Dr. Jack Sullivan, and perhaps some of the others that are regulars, and maybe some people that we don't regularly hear from as leaders in prayer on Friday. So watch for that. And then, yes,
I think that isn't that Ebony that's in that picture?
Yeah.
Well, I saw Ebony.
Yes,
She's
it
in the
is.
chat. So thank you, Ebony. We love Ebony. She does so much, and I just want to point that out.
Of course. So that's and of course that picture, which I've lost now here, is let me find where I put that. I'll put it back up. Maybe Ali, you could share it.
She gets embarrassed anytime anybody tells her thank you. So don't invite her to the chat. We saying thank you from a distance.
Yeah, well, there she is. She shows up all the time. But that cross that's there is one of the 25 crosses that was put up outside of the Lazarus community in Oklahoma City when the 25 execution dates were set. And by the way, on April 3rd, which is next Wednesday, Ebony and Reverend Bo and Senator Johnson and others will be delivering our petitions. Should the execution happen on Thursday morning, then at 4 p.m. on Thursday, there will be a vigil to paint one of those crosses red. So watch for that. And that's usually live streamed on the Lazarus Community Facebook. We'll share about that. So much going on. I'm going to just share my screen again to take us out of here. They changed up the whole menu on the Zoom thing again, which drives me nuts whenever they change it without any kind of announcement, and then you got to figure it out. But this is the webpage of deathpenaltyaction.org, and if you scroll down a little bit, you can just find the most recent petitions to sign. You can read to the president until you're a member of Congress. We encourage you to do that regularly. And if you get to hear the 5-minute videos of people impacted by the death penalty, you can find one of these videos to share with folks and to watch yourself and to give people a taste from their own voices of experience on the death penalty. And tonight, I want to share the video of the brother, Roderick Reed. So everybody mute yourselves and and this will take us out. So have a good night, and thank you for joining us. And we'll see you if you can at noon on Friday, and next week, sadly, on another execution vigil. So make sure you register for that.
One love.
You know, I had other big brothers, but Rodney was the one that doted over me. He's the one that helped me, you know, tie my shoes. He's the one that, you know, looked out for me when I first started school. My dad had this made about 20 years ago. They covered up evidence, they suppressed stuff, they violated a whole bunch of his rights. There's a lot of prosecutorial misconduct in this case. There was tampering with evidence. There was a whole bunch of stuff. Those guys helped stage that murder and everything else, and they set Rodney up, never anticipating on the fact that, number one, that the family was not going for it. We wasn't going to lay down. My mother said on the courthouse steps, y'all may try to take my son's life, but I promise you, the whole world will know about it. It's been, I don't even know how to even say it, man, because I can't even say it's been because I'm still living it, you know. It's been in so many different marches and rallies, and I remember when we first put it up, a lot of people thought we was, I don't know, kind of crazy for, you know, putting that up, thinking that we was asking for trouble, you know, but no, we was telling the truth. We was making a statement. I went down February 14th, and we had a good visit. And we go once a month, you know, my mom and I. You behind glass, you don't get to touch him, you don't get to be and have no contact whatsoever. There he is right there, that's Rodney. I'm right up under him, you know, we did everything together and slept in the same bed together, you know, coming up as kids. We both slept in a twin, you know. You know, we got the innocence flags flying. He got grandkids he's never held. He hasn't touched his kids in nothing, you know what I mean? His kids done grew up from babies, now they got kids of their own, and stuff that he should be here for. To live this life and to do what we, our family, are doing takes a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of love to do this.
We're standing out here outside of the walls to protest this murder.
To take another life, all that's doing is causing more pain. All that's doing is hurting other people. More pain and more hurt. How's that gonna help? How's that gonna heal? If you look at the statistics, there's more black people that put to death than any other. They found another way to enslave us, you know. Wrongfully conviction, you get them down there, you work them. You're gonna make money off them people. Then you're gonna get paid to house them. You know what I mean? It's all a racket. If you don't do something positive with the pain and the anger and everything that's in you, you know what I mean? Because you know what they're trying to do to your family member. It could mess you up. So this is a way for me to release, to not only help others, but help myself at the same time. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't have family members out there fighting for them, don't have, you know, people standing up for them. That's what we try to do. We try to be the voice for the voices. I'm not just fighting for him, I'm fighting for everybody that's on death row now, you know, trying to be that beacon, that horn. You know, I'm trying, you know what I mean? That's all I can do is try.